Good morning, Rattlers. Today is Monday, October 22nd, 2018. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. We have some birthdays in the house. Happy birthday! Perfect attendance for Friday. ADA, hip hip hooray. We have the homerooms of responsible, respectful, kindness, purpose, determination, resilient, brave, creativity, and diligent. Great job. I can see a couple of these homerooms hoping to hold on to that ADA trophy, so we'll see K-2 tomorrow who earns it, and 3rd, 4th, and 5th we will see on Wednesday. This week is Red Ribbon Week. Today is Crazy Sock Day today, and tomorrow is Boots Day. We're also having our book fair this week, so if you can look at it today and then bring the amount of money that you need, tomorrow we will be having book fair Monday through Friday. We also have our team and family assemblies on Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll be celebrating our Word Masters, our Math Masters, and celebrate our campus goals for those end of modules and how well you did on either meets and masters. Our idea 55 for this week is idea 45, never cut in line. The reason why this is our idea 55 because I had a couple of scholars last week that were pushing and almost fighting in line, which meant that they had to spend the day with me in school suspension, and no one wants that. So teachers, let's pause here, read the rest of it, and then let's pause and ask for questions. So today we're switching it up, and this slide is called Go for the Goal. So if you're a first grader and you want to be on track to being a word master, you should have 10,000 words. Second grade, you need to make 20,000 words with 85% or higher. Third grade, 70,000. Fourth grade, 150,000. And fifth grade, 300,000. So if we were on track as an entire campus, all of our first graders should have at least 3,500 words. So that means first grade as a whole, you should have 351,000 words. As a campus right now, first grade, we have 16,000 words. And so on and so on. Teachers, let's pause here with how many we should have if we were on track is in green, how many we have is in black. Alright, our school-wide updates, let us not forget that we are updating Dojo every morning. Teachers, that we are taking 5 points for all of the scholars that are here, have homework, full uniform, and they're also doing the right thing by bringing back any papers that they need, and like I said, on time. If you have a Dojo ding, these are the things that could possibly happen. Teachers, let us remind scholars of our referral process, and if you get a referral, oftentimes we have to show that to your parents, so please be aware of that. Today is Managing Emotions Monday. Teachers, let's pause and ask the question, what is conflict and what is bullying? How are they different and how can they be the same? Our book this entire week is called The 100 Dresses. Let's read the first part of it today.
The 100 Dresses by Eleanor Estes. Chapter 1. Wanda. Today, Monday, Wanda Petronsky was not in her seat. But nobody, not even Peggy and Madeline, the girls who started all the fun, noticed her absence. Usually Wanda sat in the next to the last seat, in the last row, in room 13. She sat in the corner of the room where the rough boys who did not make good marks on their report cards sat. The corner of the room where there was most scuffling of feet, most roars of laughter when anything funny was said, and most mud and dirt on the floor. Wanda did not sit there because she was rough and noisy. On the contrary, she was very quiet and rarely said anything at all, and nobody had ever heard her laugh out loud. Sometimes she twisted her mouth into a crooked sort of smile, but that was all. Nobody knew exactly why Wanda sat in that seat, unless it was because she came all the way from Boggin's Heights, and her feet were usually caked with dry mud that she picked up coming down the country roads. Maybe the teacher liked to keep all the children who were apt to come in with dirty shoes in one corner of the room. But no one really thought much about Wanda Petronsky once she was in the classroom. The time they thought about her was outside of school hours, at noontime when they were coming back to school, or in the morning early before school began, when groups of 2 or 3 or even more would be talking and laughing on their way to the schoolyard. Then sometimes they waited for Wanda to have fun with her. The next day, Tuesday, Wanda was not in school either, and nobody noticed her absence again, except the teacher, and probably big Bill Byron, who sat in the seat behind Wanda's, and who could now put his long legs around her empty desk, one on each side, and sit there like a frog, to the great entertainment of all in his corner of the room. But on Wednesday, Peggy and Mattie, who sat in the front row along with other children who got good marks and didn't track in a whole lot of mud, did notice that Wanda wasn't there. Peggy was the most popular girl in school. She was pretty. She had many pretty clothes, and her auburn hair was curly. Mattie was her closest friend. The reason Peggy and Mattie noticed Wanda's absence was because Wanda had made them late to school. They had waited and waited for Wanda to have some fun with her, and she just hadn't come. They kept thinking she'd come any minute. They saw Jack Beggles running to school, his necktie askew and his cap at a precarious tilt. They knew it must be late, for he always managed to slide into his chair exactly when the bell rang, as though he were making a touchdown. Still, they waited 1 minute more and 1 minute more, hoping she'd come. But finally they had to race off without seeing her. The 2 girls reached their classroom after the doors had been closed. The children were reciting in unison the Gettysburg Address, for that was the way Miss Mason always began the session. Peggy and Mattie slipped into their seats just as the class was saying the last lines, that these dead shall not have died in vain, that the nation shall, under God, have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Chapter 2. The Dresses Game. After Peggy and Mattie stopped feeling like intruders in a class that had already begun, they looked across the room and noticed that Wanda was not in her seat. Furthermore, her desk was dusty and looked as though she hadn't been there yesterday either. Come to think of it, they hadn't seen her yesterday. They had waited for her a little while, but had forgotten about her when they reached school. They often waited for Wanda Petronsky to have fun with her. Wanda lived way up on Boggin's Heights, and Boggin's Heights was no place to live. It was a good place to go and pick wildflowers in the summer, but you always held your breath till you got safely past Old Man Svensson's yellow house. People in the town said Old Man Svensson was no good. He didn't work, and worse still, his house and yard were disgracefully dirty, with rusty tin cans strewn about, and even an old straw hat. He lived alone with his dog and his cat. No wonder, said the people of the town. Who would live with him? And many stories circulated about him, and the stories were the kind that made people scurry past his house, even in broad daylight, and hope not to meet him. Beyond Svensson's there were a few small, scattered frame houses, and in one of these Wanda Petronsky lived with her father and her brother Jake. Wanda Petronsky. Most of the children in room 13 didn't have names like that. They had names easy to say, like Thomas, Smith, or Allen. There was one boy named Bounce, Willie Bounce, and people thought that was funny, but not funny in the same way that Petronsky was. Wanda didn't have any friends. She came to school alone and went home alone. She always wore a faded blue dress that didn't hang right. It was clean, but it looked as though it had never been ironed properly. She didn't have any friends, but a lot of girls talked to her. They waited for her under the maple trees on the corner of Oliver Street, or they surrounded her in the schoolyard as she stood watching some little girls play hopscotch on the worn, hard ground. "Wanda," Peggy would say in a most courteous manner, as though she were talking to Miss Mason or to the principal, perhaps. "Wanda," she'd say, giving one of her friends a nudge, "tell us, how many dresses did you say you had hanging up in your closet?" 100, said Wanda. 100! exclaimed all the girls incredulously, and the little girls would stop playing hopscotch and listen. "Yeah, 100, all lined up," said Wanda. Then her thin lips drew together in silence. "What are they like?" "All silk, I bet," said Peggy. "Yeah, all silk, all colors." "Velvet, too?" "Yeah, velvet, too. 100 dresses," repeated Wanda stolidly. "All lined up in my closet." Then they'd let her go. And then, before she'd gone very far, they couldn't help bursting into shrieks and peals of laughter. 100 dresses! Obviously, the only dress Wanda had was the blue one she wore every day. So what did she say she had 100 for? What a story! And the girls laughed derisively, while Wanda moved over to the sunny place by the ivy-covered brick wall of the school building, where she usually stood, and waited for the bell to ring. But if the girls had met her at the corner of Oliver Street, they'd carry her along with them for a way, stopping every few feet for more incredulous questions. And it wasn't always dresses they talked about. Sometimes it was hats, or coats, or even shoes. "How many shoes did you say you had?" 60. 60? 60 pairs or 60 shoes? 60 pairs, all lined up in my closet. Yesterday you said 50. Now I got 60. Cries of exaggerated politeness greeted this. "All alike?" said the girls. "Oh, no. Every pair is different. All colors. All lined up." And Wanda would shift her eyes quickly from Peggy to a distant spot, as though she were looking far ahead, looking but not seeing anything. Then the outer fringe of the crowd of girls would break away gradually, laughing, and little by little, in pairs, the group would disperse. Peggy, who had thought up this game, and Mattie, her inseparable friend, were always the last to leave. And finally, Wanda would move up the street, her eyes dull and her mouth closed tight, hitching her left shoulder every now and then in the funny way she had, finishing the walk to school alone. Peggy was not really cruel. She protected small children from bullies, and she cried for hours if she saw an animal mistreated. If anybody had said to her, "Don't you think that is a cruel way to treat Wanda?" she would have been very surprised. Cruel? What did the girl want to go and say she had 100 dresses for? Anybody could tell that was a lie. Why did she want to lie? And she wasn't just an ordinary person, else why would she have a name like that? Anyway, they never made her cry. As for Maddie, this business of asking Wanda every day how many dresses and how many hats and how many this and that she had was bothering her. Maddie was poor herself. She usually wore somebody's hand-me-down clothes. Thank goodness she didn't live up on Boggins Heights or have a funny name. And her forehead didn't shine
The Trump administration is
She didn't live up on Boggins Heights or have a funny name. And her forehead didn't shine the way Wanda's round one did. What did she use on it? Sapolio? That's what all the girls wanted to know. Sometimes when Peggy was asking Wanda those questions in that mock-polite voice, Maddie felt embarrassed and studied the marbles in the palm of her hand, rolling them around and saying nothing herself. Not that she felt sorry for Wanda, exactly. She would never have paid any attention to Wanda if Peggy hadn't invented the dresses game. But suppose Peggy and all the others started in on her next. She wasn't as poor as Wanda, perhaps, but she was poor. Of course, she would have more sense than to say 100 dresses. Still, she would not like them to begin on her, not at all. Oh, dear. She did wish Peggy would stop teasing Wanda Petronsky.
So teachers, based on the book that we just read, was anyone having a conflict, and were there times that you noticed that someone might have been being bullied? Remember, Rattlers are respectful, responsible, and relentless. #FearTheVenom. Have a great Monday, Rattlers.